presented to the Council of the Army, 1647. During the 1640s, the battle for political supremacy in England between the Stuart monarchs, James I and Charles I in Parliament, culminated in civil war, the temporary overthrow of the monarchy, and, in 1649, the execution of Charles I. This struggle produced an intense public debate over the concept of English freedom. In 1647, the Levellers, history's first democratic political movement, proposed a written constitution, the Agreement of the People, which began by proclaiming at how high a rate we value our just freedom. At a time when democracy was still widely seen as the equivalent of anarchy and disorder, the document proposed to abolish the monarchy and House of Lords and greatly expand the right to vote. It called for religious freedom and equality before the law for all Englishmen. The Levellers were soon suppressed, but the Agreement of the People offered a glimpse of the modern democratic definition of freedom as a universal entitlement in a society based on equal rights, rather than the traditional idea of liberties, as a collection of limited rights defined by social class, with some groups enjoying far more than others. An agreement of the people for a firm and present peace upon grounds of common right. Having by our late labors and hazards made it appear to the world at how high a rate we value our just freedom, and God having so far owned our cause as to deliver the enemies thereof into our hands, we do now hold ourselves bound in mutual duty to each other to take the best care we can for the future, to avoid both the danger of returning into a slavish condition and the chargeable remedy of another war. For, as it cannot be imagined that so many of our countrymen would have opposed us in this quarrel if they had understood their own good, so may we safely promise to ourselves that when our common rights and liberties shall be cleared, their endeavors will be disappointed that seek to make themselves our masters. Since, therefore, our former oppressions and scarce yet ended troubles have been occasioned either by want of frequent national meetings in council, or by rendering those meetings ineffectual, we are fully agreed and resolved to provide that hereafter our representatives be neither left to an uncertainty for the time, nor made useless to the ends for which they are intended. In order whereunto we declare, 1. That the people of England, being at this day very unequally distributed by counties, cities, and boroughs for the election of their deputies in Parliament, ought to be more indifferently proportioned, according to the number of the inhabitants, the circumstances whereof for number, place, and manner are to be set down before the end of this present Parliament. 2. That to prevent the many inconveniences apparently arising from the long continuance of the same persons in authority, this present Parliament be dissolved upon the last day of September, which shall be in the year of our Lord 1648. 3. That the people do, of course, choose themselves a Parliament once in 2 years, upon the first Thursday in every second March, after the manner as shall be prescribed before the end of this Parliament, to begin to sit upon the first Thursday in April following, at Westminster or such other place as shall be appointed from time to time by the preceding representatives, and to continue till the last day of September, then next ensuing, but no longer. 4. That the power of this and all future representatives of this nation is inferior only to theirs who choose them, and doth extend, without the consents or concurrence of any other person or persons, to the enacting, altering, and repealing of laws, to the erecting and abolishing of offices and courts, to the appointing, removing, and calling to account magistrates and officers of all degree, to making war and peace, to the treating with foreign states, and generally to whatsoever is not expressly or impliedly reserved by the represented to themselves, which are as follows: that matters of religion, And the ways of God's worship are not at all entrusted by us to any human power, because therein we cannot remit or exceed a title of what our consciences dictate to be the mind of God without wilful sin. Nevertheless, the public way of instructing the nation, so it be not compulsive, is referred to their discretion. That the matter of impressing and constraining any of us to serve in the wars is against our freedom, and therefore we do not allow it in our representatives. The rather, because money, the sinews of war, being always at their disposal, they can never want numbers of men apt enough to engage in any just cause. That after the dissolution of this present Parliament, no person be at any time questioned for anything said or done in reference to the late public differences, otherwise than in execution of the judgments of the present representatives or House of Commons. That in all laws made or to be made, every person may be bound alike, and that no tenure, estate, charter, degree, birth, or place do confer any exemption from the ordinary course of legal proceedings, whereunto others are subjected. That as the laws ought to be equal, so they must be good, and not evidently destructive to the safety and well-being of the people. These things we declare to be our native rights, and therefore are agreed and resolved to maintain them with our utmost possibilities against all opposition whatsoever, being compelled thereunto not only by the examples of our ancestors, whose blood was often spent in vain for the recovery of their freedoms, suffering themselves through fraudulent accommodations to be still deluded of the fruit of their victories, but also by our own woeful experience, who, having long expected and dearly earned the establishment of these certain rules of government, are yet made to depend for the settlement of our peace and freedom upon him that intended our bondage, and brought a cruel war upon us.